On today's show, MLB analyst and social media superstar Rob Friedman, the pitching ninja, joins us to talk about swinging strike rates, developing new pitching grips, some young major league stars, and much more. Grab your sword, sit back and relax. Our conversation is up next on Beat the Shift. And welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always is Ruven Guy. How are you, Ruven?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. It is the off season. We're right in the middle of hot stove. Shohei Ohtani signs. We got a breaking trade. The Dodgers acquired Tyler Glass now from the Rays. So things are moving in baseball. What's going on with you, Ruven?
Yeah, it's actually I'm doing great, and it's actually fun to watch where all these players go. Except I don't like it when the rich get richer. Even though I am a Mets fan, I don't see them doing anything yet. But they do have the most money. But as you see, the way Ohtani got paid, I don't think it matters how much money you have.
Crazy stuff. Yeah, I worry for my Mets what we're going to do for this year. I think it's more of a 2025 play, but we shall see. We've got a great show for you today. Joining us, you might know him a little bit more as the pitching ninja. He's creator of amazing GIFs. Lately, he's been doing that Name That Pitcher, which, by the way, I'm so bad at guessing who it actually is. He's credited with having helped a large number of pitchers in one way or another with their pitches. He's got about 160,000 YouTube followers, almost 500 million Twitter/X followers. Been an analyst on MLB, Fox, ESPN, Peacock, others, you name it. Welcome to the show, Rob Friedman. How are you, Rob?
I'm doing great. I just found out about that Tyler Glasnow thing. That's sick.
Did I break that to you?
You did.
Yeah, just happened minutes ago. Jeff Passan, our go-to guy, just broke that. Yeah, the Rays are selling and Dodgers hungry for pitching. Does that actually help them, or I should say, does it increase the chances of them signing a Japanese pitcher or not?
I think so. They need that piece. Like either way, I mean, they're one step away, and I think that's the step they need.
Yeah, well, they do need the pitching. They've got the hitting. And, I mean, the following year, they're going to have Ohtani as well pitching. That's stacked roster for 10 years. And after 10 years, of course, they have to pay a $70 million check for nobody. But
It's going to be worth it. It'll definitely be worth it for them, though.
Yeah, 100%. We shall see. We shall see. But it's going to be exciting 2024. Just, a little bit about you, Rob. And, we know you do all those great stuff at Pitching Ninja. How did you get into that? What's the story? How did Pitching Ninja come about? How did you get your love of baseball? And, how'd you come to be what you are?
So my love of baseball started when I was young. Like I grew up a Mets fan, and they were terrible when I grew up. So it was like, it was just rotten, but I always dreamed of being a baseball player, was never good enough. Never even thought about getting involved in baseball, to be honest. But then my son was playing, and I got drafted to coach. And I just started doing more and more research about like the right ways to teach stuff. Like I knew that what I did wasn't great. And I think sometimes you're better off not having been a stud player, because if you're hungry for information, I'm a lawyer. Like I have a legal background. What the heck? But I started asking a lot of questions, got involved in some message boards. This is before real social media. And, one of the guys we'd all hang out. It was Kyle Bodie, me, Ben Brewster from Tread Athletics, Lance Wheeler, who started Baseball Think Tank, and the Core Velocity Belt. And even guys like Matt Blake were involved early on in my Twitter escapade. So it just started growing. I started sharing stuff I learned. I asked a lot of questions, did my own deep dive. Like as a lawyer, I wanted to figure out like what the real truth was beyond the marketing stuff. So I just kept looking at more and more videos, breaking things down, asking questions, and then sharing it, because I knew I wasn't going to coach forever. And, I didn't want the information, because I am uniquely positioned to be like a big geek and dive way deep into this stuff. And I didn't want it to kind of end with me. I didn't want people that couldn't get that information, didn't have the time, didn't know where to find it, didn't have nice people to help me out. Eric Cressy's another one. Alan Jager's another one that helped me out. So all these guys, it just took it's basically a whole village of folks that were all learning together. And I shared it and kept sharing and sharing it, and it just kept taking off. And I was like, all right, this is kind of cool. And, in the meantime, I had started a software company back in '99 and worked there, running the whole thing for a while, and then running a division. And then decided that it's just cooler to be pitching ninja than to be a software guy.
And when did you realize, or when was the oh my goodness point in your life when you saw that you're this big social media personality or influencer or even a baseball scout? What made you realize that happened?
Probably the biggest thing was when I got banned by MLB. And it was kind of shocking. Like, at that point I was like, all right, cool. I got more hours of my day back. I don't have to do this anymore. And then they contacted me and said, oh no, we don't want to really ban you. We love what you do. We just want to make it more official. And I was like, wait, really? And when I was, for like a week was off Twitter, and all the MLB players and front office guys and everybody were like, wait, you can't do this to Pitching Ninja. And I didn't know anything about these folks that were, I knew that I was being, followed. I didn't know how much people liked what I did. And to me, that was like the big thing. I was like, wow, I've had actually an influence in this stuff. And I would rather, it's just fun. Like, that was really probably the biggest thing.
And my question then is this: you always talk about the pitchers, quote unquote, their secrets and everything like that. Are pitchers that you delve into, are they concerned about what you're showing out on public and showing their quote unquote secrets? How it may be easier to hit them?
Very, very seldom, because it doesn't really help necessarily with hitting them. It does help other guys. Like, most baseball players actually want to pay it forward. They know that there's information out there that people can reverse engineer what they do. They're a little less worried about that. I think they're more excited about being able to share what they do and to help other folks, but they don't know how to do it, because if they start doing it on their own accounts, then people just keep bugging them and asking more and more questions. And if they can go through me, then I get bugged and they don't have to deal with it. So it's way better for them. And so I think it's actually, I'm in a better position to do it. And I think folks generally like sharing stuff. Very, very seldom. I'm trying to even think. Somebody has said, I really can't tell you. And then they tell me later, like, it maybe been at that point, they had so this is what happened. Like, somebody would develop a new pitch in the off season and say, man, check out this splitter I'm throwing. And like, oh, can I tweet that? I'm like, no, I don't want you to. And that happens every once in a while because they don't want people to know it until they see it. And then later on, they'll tell me.
Yeah, I was going to ask sort of the opposite way, more in the positive, that, in terms of helping pitchers. I had lunch yesterday with our good buddy Frank Stamfel from CBS, and talking about how George Kirby sort of found out how to throw the splitter from watching your stuff and your interview with Kevin Gausman. First of all, what is the story with that occurrence? And also in general, how do you think pitchers use social media to better themselves?
So yeah, that absolutely did happen. And I interviewed Kirby after. Kirby's a great dude. Like, I love that dude, and fantastic pitcher, really good dude. Big fan. And I thought that was fantastic when he was asked where he got his splitter from. He's like, oh yeah, I was just checking out Pitching Ninja's interview with Kevin Gausman and picked it up. And I'm like, dude, Kevin Gausman talked about his splitter for like 20 minutes. Like, he gave the most in-depth explanation of his splitter of any pitch that I've ever had anybody describe to me. Like, he went on and on about it. It's a very complicated pitch, and Kirby just picked it up and loved it, which is why everybody should be watching this stuff. Like, it shouldn't just be the pros, but you see why they get where they are, because they try to uncover everything they can. And a lot of it centers around, like, if I'm putting out content, they want to see it. They want to see what other guys are up to, maybe pick up something. I also had Darvish DM me to get Shane Bieber's knuckle curve grip at one point. I was like, I was at dinner with my wife. Yeah, it was ridiculous. So I'm at dinner with the wife. She's like, why are you on your phone? I'm like, Darvish wants to know Shane Bieber's knuckle curve grip. I'm like, I got to help him. And sure enough, I did. And he threw it, I think, the next outing. and had like 12 Ks or something. But he threw it as a slider instead of the knuckle curve.
That's one of his 12 pitches, right?
Yeah, exactly. At least.
Do any of the pitchers tell you stuff quote unquote off the record and then try to get your opinion based on what you see? Do they try? I mean, you mentioned about getting different, having you Darvish call about getting a certain grip, but do they ask like, am I doing anything wrong? Am I doing something that I shouldn't be doing? Like, am I tipping something? Do they ever come to you about that?
Occasionally they do, yeah. They'll say, what do you think about this pitch? Either because they're proud of it or they really want my opinion. Like, does this look nasty? And most of the time they're right. Like if a pitcher thinks a pitch is nasty, it's very seldom not going to be. And it's almost like they think it's cool, but they want to show me, and generally it is. So yeah, that definitely happens a good bit, just bouncing things off. I'm here as a resource. Like I never thought I'd be in this position. And I view my role as if I'm going to do everything I can to be the good guy, to try and help folks out. And, it's just my time. Like if I can, I get paid by seeing somebody successful. And occasionally, if they ever give me credit for something, I freaking love it. Like I never expect anything. And I just want to be one of the good guys out there. It sounds lame though, doesn't it? Like,
it doesn't at all. You want to help. You want to help people out, which is good. Which is why I want to ask this next question. Please tell me the difference between a sweeper and a slider. I mean, they're often confused. When I first heard it, I thought you were just talking about a slider that had extra movement, but I had no idea. So, what do you think is the difference, or what is the difference between a sweeper and a slider?
So, I could give you the easy version is. It's kind of like the difference between a sinker and a two-seamer, the way I think about it. A two-seamer would be more of the arm side run component, less of the downward motion and the downward component. And a sinker is more of the downward component, less of the arm side run that stands out. So a sweeper, a slider traditionally, people didn't want to throw a slurvy, sloppy, swooping slider. Dave Stieb did back in the day. It's not a new pitch. But it was discouraged by a lot of people. They wanted that tight thing that just dropped, that what we would call a gyro slider. So what happened is his Barton Smith, great dude. I'd actually, so weirdly, and this goes to my ridiculous lengths that I will go through to find stuff. I had found a paper he wrote about two-seamers, and he's a fluid dynamics professor. And I read it. I was like, wow, this is different from what most people think. And I started asking him questions and then publicizing it. So he came up with this whole concept of seam shifted wake, which actually ends up being one of the keys to developing a sweeper. So while it's not a new pitch, it uses newfound properties that we didn't quite know existed. In all the 100+ years of playing baseball, nobody knew why the ball moved the way they did. They only thought it was like Magnus effect, so the typical spin that you would see that made the ball move. And there was this whole effect by the seam staying in a position. When the air comes over it, it makes the ball move an extra amount. He originally thought it only had to do with things like a changeup or a sinker, but instead, most folks are using it today to develop sweepers, and that's why the sweeper does what it does. It's a new property that we're able to now, it used to be one guy would throw it and people tried to copy his grip, but grips don't work for everybody. Even if you have a grip, your fingers are different, your arm slot's different, speed's different, height's different, everything's different about the pitcher. Just because you grip it the same way doesn't mean it's going to do that. But with the seam shifted wake, you can, if you get the seams rotating a certain way, it's unanimous. Everybody can throw it if you can get the ball to do it. And that combined with slow-mo cameras like the Edgertronic, and then things that can measure how the pitch is moving, like TrackMan and Hawkeye and all that stuff, you can easily deconstruct it and figure out how to throw one. So it is a totally different slider. It's like every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. So every sweeper is a slider, but not every slider is a sweeper. Does that help?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely incredible with the technology and the science that we're not discovering, but we're utilizing for baseball today. It's just absolutely incredible. I want to talk a little bit about 2023 and 2024, the state of baseball, and we had a lot of new rule changes this year. Most have had to do with the pitcher. We know hitting is tremendously up. What have you seen in terms of your take on the overall effect of the new rule changes on baseball, and particularly on pitchers?
I would say what the effect it has on me is is the games get over quicker. I have to do my job quicker, and I tend to stay up later because I used to give up on West Coast games, and now I know I can watch most of them. So it's helped me, but also made me have to do a lot more. But as far as pitchers, I think some of it's helped. I think some of the pitch clock has some good aspects of it that I think helps a pitcher. And there are some aspects of the new rules that don't help a pitcher. I worry still about the pitch clock, pitch time, or whatever you want to call it, about increasing injuries. And it may be just coincidence, but that was my concern going into it, is if you think about like working out, you need to rest between sets. And that's what pitchers do in between pitches. They're resting and recovering a little bit. And if you don't have that recovery, after a while it accumulates and you're throwing hard, you're max effort. So eventually you may break down or be tired. Your muscles don't protect your ligaments as well when they're tired. You may have more injuries. So that could happen. And that's one thing arguably happens. The shift was really a non-issue. I thought it would hurt pitchers a little more. I didn't think it. I mean, it looked more like baseball to me, to be honest. Like there were a bunch of balls that would be hit up the middle and there were outs, and I'd with the shift and be like, it's good that you got an out, but that's not the baseball fans are used to seeing. So thought that was a good change. I like the stolen base change, even though it does tie pitchers' hands a little bit with keeping runners on. You just have to come up with different ways. But there are also unique uses of the pitch clock that I thought created some strategic opportunities, which I thought were really cool. I overall I give MLB like an A- or almost an A on the implementation of it.
Yeah, great insight. There's a lot to unpack. Obviously, I give that question to you as a very open canvas, but so much to unpack, including your own personal time. I know I'm watching games, and I sometimes I'm working late, and all right, let's see how the Mets are doing in the 10:30. What do you mean the game's been over for half an hour already? I mean, I get that. What I'm also interested in is sort of the variance between game to game, and what I'm noticing, obviously hitting is up in general, so ERAs are up around the league. We've had in the NL now, because of the DH, we've had a case where the NL ERA is now over the AL ERA, which never happens before. But we're seeing a lot of pitchers, even the ace pitchers, talking like Spencer Strider, Kevin Gausman, and they're throwing an occasional clunker. We're talking like a 5-inning, 8-run outing. They've got their strikeouts, so continuously great. They've got their starts where they look fabulous, but they're throwing the clunkers, especially early on in the season. Do you think this is a trend that's going to continue? I'm talking about the variance in terms of performance game to game.
That is a fantastic question. And I think some of this goes to the mental game stuff, where I'd mentioned there's a point where you're recovering in between pitches, but you're also resetting your mind. And pitchers have been trained. You're doing this your whole life. You have this much time for routine in between pitches. And if you're not able to slow down the game when you need to, which is very tough with a pitch clock, you may find it kind of like an avalanche. Like all of a sudden things spiral out of control. Now, sometimes it helps because the hitter can't step out as much either, and the hitter likes to be in control and dictate the pace. Now the pitcher can, but it does definitely impact their mental game because, that's one of the big things I'm into is pitchers aren't robots. None of these players are robots. And there's a very important aspect to it that's very understudied. Everybody loves the numbers, and they love the velo numbers, spin rates. How much did this pitch break? But not everybody looks at the mental game aspects of it. And I do think that impacts it. And probably is one of the causes for that as pitchers try to shorten their routines or figure out other ways to slow the game down so that they don't spiral out of control. Great question.
Yeah, it's also the first year. We have to see how everyone adapts. We'll see what injury avoidance methods the clubs use. So a lot to see as the years go on. But before we continue on the show, time for the Injury Gurus Trivia of the Week.
Now, Now, this trivia question is going to be geared specifically to you, Rob, to the pitching ninja, because you're known for putting up these videos of pitchers making hitters look silly swinging strikes. So my question to you, and an Ariel, you can answer also. We can go back and forth, a round robin type way of answering. Can you guys name the top 15 qualified starting pitchers with the highest swinging strike percentage from last year?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Top 15 qualified
Top 15 qualified starting pitchers with the highest swinging strike percentage last year.
Can I go with Spencer Strider?
Number 1.
Okay.
At
That would be obvious one.
18.9%.
Let's go with Blake Snell.
Blake Snell is number 2.
Qualified. I mean, I'm gonna. I've got to go with Senga just because of the ghost fork and his high
Kodai
whiff rate.
Senga, number 12 on the list at 12.5%.
I'll go with Gaussman.
Gaussman is number 10 at 12.9%. Keep it up. You're doing well.
Oh. High Luzardo.
Jesus Luzardo, number 6 at 14.2%.
I'll
Look
go,
at
I'll go
us.
Pablo Lopez.
Pablo Lopez, number 4, 14.5% swing strike percentage.
We're getting down to brass tacks here. Uh-oh. Let's throw in Dylan Cease.
Dylan Cease, number 7 at 13.6. You can also think about the high strikeout pitchers in general from last year.
Let's do Luis Castillo. Does he make it?
Luis Castillo is number 3.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Wow.
I didn't realize that.
I did not. I would have thought that might be a little lower.
Yes.
Um,
Got a lot of National League pitchers coming up.
Fastball Freddie. How about Freddie Peralta?
Freddie Peralta, number 5.
I'll go with
at
teammate Corbin
14.4.
Burns.
Corbin Burns did not qualify.
Oh.
That's strike 1.
Uh-oh.
I'll give you guys a hint. Think NL East. There are a couple of pitchers coming up on the NL East that you haven't mentioned.
He didn't have a good year, but did Nola qualify for this?
Noel did not qualify, no.
Okay.
What about
Wheeler?
Morton?
Morton and Wheeler. Wheeler's at number
All right.
8. Morton's at number 11.
How many are we missing? We can't be missing that many.
You're
I think we
missing
did good
4.
here.
There are 4 left. You got 11 so far.
How about
Got
Garrett
4
Cole?
left. Garrett Cole did not make it.
Oh, let's see.
These are a little bit tougher because you wouldn't necessarily think of them.
How about
One, I'll give you a
Kyle
hint.
Bradish, maybe?
Kyle Bradish did not make it. 2 of the guys left were traded, and someone was traded twice, or let go and then traded again.
Let go and traded.
Lucas Giolito?
Lucas Giolito, number 14. Okay, so let me give you the final 3 because it's a little bit tougher down here. Lance Lynn. Steady Lance Lynn. At
Wow, I
12.
would not have
Wow.
guessed that.
9.
It didn't seem
Number
like he was getting a lot of swings and misses
Strikeouts
at
and
some
homers. You know.
It's the two instances where it's what he does. Sandy Alcantara, even though he had sort of a down season, he was still getting the swing and strikes. And Yusei Kikuchi was number 15.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, when I was looking this up, I also wanted to compare the highest percentage of called strikes for a pitcher. 2 of the pitchers we named are also in the top 15 of highest percentage of pitchers called strike. Which 2 pitchers? This is a tougher
Somebody
question.
that doesn't challenges folks in the zone.
I'll give you a hint. One of them you mentioned earlier in this podcast.
Does it rhyme with Spencer Strider?
No. No.
Is it also Senga?
No, not Senga. One of them, I'm going to give you the answers. One of them is Kevin Gaussman.
Okay.
And the other one, which is quite surprising, was Charlie Morton.
Wow.
So Charlie Morton, even though he's at a tender age of, I think it was 39 or 40 getting there, he was in the top 15 of the highest swinging strike percentage and the highest called strike percentage. So my question to you, Rob, is this. Do you think the strikeout rates are going to go up or down or stay the same for next year?
I mean, it's good question. I am going lower, and I don't know why I'm saying that.
Just a gut feeling?
Yeah, just a little bit of a gut feeling.
Yeah.
As everybody makes adjustments and hitters catch up to being their pace being dictated, that's just my guess.
You know, I'm gonna say it'll go up, just to be different, of course. But no, I think that more people getting used to the clock, getting used to the new rules, the more advancements in pitching, the spin rates, the seam shifted wake. I think there's a little bit more to squeeze out of strikeout rates. So I'm gonna say up. You didn't say by how much, but I'll just go up a tad.
Do you think that maybe hitters are trying to put the ball a tiny bit more in play now, though? Because they're getting rewarded a little bit more for it?
Not really.
Yet.
I think they're still going for the home run. So I think it's either going to stay the same or go up because home runs are what make the money, and home runs is what baseball wants. They want either the strikeout or the home run. Those are the two ultimate. I mean, yes, they want to score more runs, but the home runs is what everyone comes to see. People don't come to see Pete Alonso strike out. They come to Pete Alonso hit a home run. They want to see how far Vlad Guerrero can hit a home run. They don't want to see him strike out five times, you know?
And we had Vinny Pasquantino on last year, and he was basically saying that our strengths are our strengths, and we're going for our strengths. We're not adapting to the game. We're making the most out of our strengths. So in that aspect, I think the game is still long ball, not small ball in baseball. I don't think. I mean, if you have Luis Arias on your team, maybe we're playing a little bit more small ball. But for the vast majority of teams, they're going with the same game plan, which is just attack. The power hitters go for power, and so on and so forth. It's play your own game is really the name of it. Makes sense to me. I want to talk a little bit about analytics, as this is the Fangraphs podcast. Obviously you're showing these GIFs and all. Is it a GIF or a GIF, by the way?
I say GIF, and I'm sticking by that.
I say GIF also, but I guess there's no absolute correct term.
There is, and I think people, I don't correct anybody, whatever they call it. It doesn't matter.
Well, anyways, question is, in terms of analytics and in terms of stats and data and all that, what do you think is the most important aspect of analytics for pitchers that they're analyzing these days in the state of baseball?
I think it's going to depend on the pitcher. I know that they're way more in tune with their own analytics. A lot of it is just stuff like looking at movement, how much things are breaking, the spin axis of their pitches, all that. To me, what I look at are basically, I love high whiff rates, not only because it makes better GIFs for me, but I think it's more, it means it's just the ultimate domination. I think it's very tough to consistently give up balls in play and be dominant. It can happen. There are pitchers that do it, but the better way, to me, the more consistent way of doing it is just sheer domination. So that's stuff that I look for.
Okay, and with all the GIFs or GIFs that you put out there, I wanted to ask, this is a fantasy relevant baseball podcast, so I wanted to ask you, what do you think your impact is on the fantasy baseball world, and how can we use the information and your work to help us with our fantasy teams?
Oh, that's great, because it's one of the things that I do on my YouTube channel too, is I try to give, if I'm seeing somebody that I think is either added a new pitch that's going to be, it's going to help them, I can usually spot it before folks that are, managing their own fantasy team can see that and let them know the impact. I was pretty high on Snell pretty early on last year, for example, just for a guy that I had, I look at all the different aspects of what a pitcher is doing, if they've changed anything, their approach. If something jumps out at me, usually it's real. Sometimes it's just an outlier and I miss it. But, it's one of those things that if you pay attention, you're going to see new pitchers too. Like I cover college baseball. I cover, anything in the minor leagues. Matt Brash is a guy who I picked up in the minor leagues. I was watched him going, holy crap, this dude looks like Kerry Wood and he's in the minor leagues. What's up with that? And everybody picked up on it right away. They're like, wow, this guy's nasty. And then, he gets called up to the major leagues and struggled as a starter, but you can see the nastiness, right? Like that's there. So if you're paying attention, you're going to see, I do your work for you a lot of times. At least somebody might catch your eye and go, man, he's nasty. He's got sick stuff. Let me look more into him. So, that's one of the ways. It's just basically I monitor everything so that folks can see and make their own judgments.
Yeah, if you're not following Pitching Ninja, you should, although I would assume that most of the folks that are listening here right now already do. Let's ask one or two mailbag questions. Thanks, everyone, for sending in stuff. PhysiqueFan98 asks, are teams like the Rays, who have a lot of severe pitching injuries, are they doing anything differently from other teams, or do you think it's just a case of bad luck? What say you, Rob?
So my instincts are it's a case of bad luck, and I hated it for them because every time they had a pitcher, talking about fantasy baseball, when you had Springs just looked like a world beater, and then he gets injured, which really kind of sucked for me. Like, I enjoy watching these guys, and I hate injuries. Like, I hate it. I know how hard it is for guys to have to recover from it, from them to be away from their team. So I hate that stuff. I think it is more luck. I know that they have unique philosophies there. I don't think they necessarily have unique training regimens per se. They do like guys to throw the ball basically down the middle and let them, let their stuff work, and less nibbling type stuff. So maybe they have guys generally they're seeking out guys with better stuff, and maybe they throw harder in general, and maybe there's an inclination to get injured, but I really don't think they're doing anything wrong.
Yeah, I tend to think so also, although since I'm a Mets fan, I sort of think that all the injuries congregate on the Mets, so it's something to do with the
Every
the
team
staff.
thinks that, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
Although with the Rays do employ pitchers with very odd arm angle slots, so that is a little bit different. Maybe that is more prone to getting injured. They also take more gambles on cheap players because for them, let's just buy a bunch of guys for high upside because that's what we can afford, and it works for them in a lot of ways. So maybe the Rays, I would say, a little bit more prone just because of their buying philosophy and who they employ. But in general, luck is obviously the dominating force everywhere.
There's not really a common thread between the guys that have gotten injured too. They're all kind of different. They're all, I always generally when you're seeing somebody, you see this online all the time on social media where you'll post somebody's mechanics and you're like, oh yeah, Tommy John in 2 years. And nobody can predict that accurately. When Max Scherzer came up, they were like, oh, he's a reliever. He's going to pitch only a little bit because he's got the inverted W, blah, blah, blah. And that never happened. Right, so it's not something that you can really project very well.
We'll do one more mailbag question from Ari Rubin, who says, which two, so he's asking a player question, which two of these would you keep out of the following three young pitchers at the cost of a 16th round draft pick in a mixed league? So basically, who are the best two here? Is it Yuri Perez, Cole Reagans, Tanner Bybee?
You're giving me three of my favorite young pitchers in baseball. Holy crap. Like Cole Reagans could win a freaking Cy Young next year. He was that dominant when, just jacked up everything, throwing 99, I think it might touch 100 from the left side with just freaking nasty stuff. But Yuri Perez is maybe as good a young prospect as you will ever see. And then Tanner Bybee is like a baby Shane Bieber, and I would take that every day of the week. So I'm not going to be of much help here. I know that like Chris Bassett chimed in when I was going over like who the best rookies are. He said he thought Yuri Perez and Tanner Bybee were clearly the two rookies, and I'd have a hard time arguing with him. But that was before Reagans kind of just came up, got traded and started dominating, and I would not like to give up any of them. I guess if you're looking pure throwing heat, you would go with Reagans and Perez. I mean, the baby giraffe can just bring it, but Bybee is so good. Like he's got his whole arsenal. He knows how to pitch. I love him. I don't think he's going to go wrong. In other words, like I think he's not going to go wrong with any of those. Flip a coin, and you'll probably be right.
Ruvain, take on that.
I think that Yuri Perez is probably the most underrated. I mean, he's on the Marlins. You don't really hear him that much unless he does something spectacular. He's some of those guys that's under like a guy like under the radar, like a Sandy Alcantara, who people didn't know about. He was I mean, the Cardinals traded him. They didn't think he was anybody. But the Marlins find these pitchers. Jesus Luzardo. They find all these pitchers that are just unbelievable, and it takes a while for them to get going. Once they get the couple of more innings under the belt, they all of a sudden they just seem to take off. And plus, unlike other teams, unlike the Rays who don't let the pitchers pitch, they let them pitch. So I think Yuri Perez has the most upside. Cole Reagans, I'm not as high on him as Yuri Perez. I like Bybee more than Cole Reagans, so if I had to pick two, I think it'd be Yuri Perez and Tanner Bybee over Cole Reagans. What's his name? Pollock is not gonna like that, but that's what it is.
Nick Pollock, yeah, he's a Cole
Nick
Reagans
Pollock's not
guy.
gonna like that.
He and I both, like Nick and I have talked about that, and I like Cole Reagans was just shoving. Like, it is so tough not to like that guy.
Yeah, I'll go Yuri Perez first, and I think I'd say a medium step above these guys. I'm more sure about him. And I'd pick Reagans over Bybee for this particular question to draft at a 16th round in a mixed roto. I think strikeout upside is a little bit more with Reagans, so I probably for fantasy purposes I would take Reagans, but very, 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 very small over Bybee.
It's really close, but I will tell you, Perez is about as good a young pitcher, like command, stuff. He's freaking 6'8" too. He's a monster.
Yeah. Oh, he is really good. And as Ruben said, he will pitch. They let him pitch in the Marlins, and innings matter, and so the more counting stats you get, better for your fantasy team. All right, 2 quick questions for you, sort of a mini lightning round for you, Rob. Number 1, favorite GIF of all time?
That's a tough question. It's like asking me like who my favorite kid is. But I definitely did do some great stuff with Javi Baez, making fun of his tendency to swing at absolutely everything. I matched him up with Sister Jean K-ing him, as well as 50 Cent. So that's probably one of my favorite stuff I've done. But like, as far as just a pure pitch, it may be like Miguel Castro against Ketel Marte, where it was the sword of the century. Like, Marte went flying, and it's still one of the most hilarious things you'll ever see.
And favorite current baseball player?
Ooh. Yeah, I guess Shohei you can't say, right? Like, that's too easy.
You can't say it,
yeah,
right?
No, you can.
I mean, I enjoy watching all of his games. So, like, he definitely, like, he is a gift not only to baseball, but also to everybody on social media. You put him out there, and it gets more interaction than anything, because I think everybody's amazed at his talent, the way he carries himself. His expressions are hilarious. He's one of those guys that I think is absolutely just fun to watch every time he's doing anything on the baseball field. So that would make him my favorite. But there's other, like, it depends, again, what day. I love watching Spencer Strider pitch. I love, like, Devin Williams' airbender is unlike anything we've ever seen in baseball. As far as like spin rate on a changeup, it's crazy. Or like Joan Duran is nuts. Like, he's just pure. You don't know when he's going to break the all-time velocity record. So just tons of little things that I miss in the off season. It's just like, you're making me miss baseball now.
All right. Well, before we go, anything you'd like to pitch? Where can we follow you and see all the great work that you do?
Absolutely. Well, you can follow me at Pitching Ninja on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling that platform. On IG, Pitching Ninja, TikTok, Pitching Ninja, and YouTube at Pitching Ninja Videos. And you can always pick up a shirt or a hat. I mean, I'll hawk that, right? It's holiday season. Buy yourself something. Buy your favorite baseball fan something at pitchingninja.com. How is that for an ad?
Amazing. All right, thank you so much, Rob Friedman, Pitching Ninja, for being on the show. Ruben and I will be back in just a minute with the injury update. All right, we're back. Great interview with Rob Friedman there. A lot of insight, a lot of great stuff there. All right, Ruben, let's do a bunch of injuries. It's been a long offseason so far. I'm sure you've got plenty to say, so go for it.
Yes, we'll stick with the pitching theme here as we just had the pitching ninja on. I'm going to start with Alex Cobb. He had hip surgery at the beginning of November. He had a procedure to repair the labrum for his right hip impingement issues. He's expected to need 6 months from the beginning of November to return, so he'll miss at least the first month of the year and maybe a little bit longer depending on how his rehab goes. Now, a couple guys you may want to keep an eye on going toward next year, or even the middle of next year. Yu Darvish, I mentioned him when we had our live podcast out in Arizona, that he had a bone spur and he was shut down for that for a right elbow bone spur. We don't know if he had surgery. We may not know if he had surgery for it until spring training. So if you're drafting now, think about what you want to do about that. And a couple of guys who you want to think about maybe to draft later in the course of drafts, if you're drafting now, Robbie Ray. He had Tommy John surgery in May. He should be out midway through next year. And other pitchers to look for toward the middle around All-Star break, post All-Star break, Luis Garcia, Drew Rasmussen, and Dustin May. All those pitchers have timelines to come back around July, All-Star break, that time. So if you want to take a waiver on them early in the year and you have room on your roster to be able to do that, that's great. If you want to think about picking up those guys if they weren't drafted, then you may want to think about getting them, let's say, in May or June. If you have a roster spot, just keep those names in the back of your mind.
All right, Ruvain, what's going on with you in general these days? What do you got cooking in the fantasy world?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru, where I tweet out the injury updates as they come. They're coming in slow because it happens to be the offseason. Teams don't have to tell you anything. You can also catch my weekly article during season on Rotoboiler, which discusses all the injuries that are mentioned here on this pod, as well as many others.
All right, I'm Ariel Cohen. I write over at Fangraphs, Rotoballer. We got the ATC projections coming out next month. About the third week in January. So look forward for that. And, of course, you can listen to us right here on the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. We'll be back next week, and then we'll be back weekly in January. So, a lot to look forward to. 2024 season right around the corner. Wishing everybody happy holidays as you get into holiday season. Happy Hanukkah for those who just celebrated. Today's the last day when this comes out. And Merry Christmas and Happy Kwanzaa. And enjoy all those great holidays as they come up this month. All right, everyone. Once again, thanks again to Rob Friedman, the Pitching Ninja, for coming on the show. And from all of us here at Beat the Shift, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.